I'm not sure if you heard of Pastor Robert Morris
Mm-hmm.
from Gateway.
Mm-hmm.
He came out with something recently, well, actually a couple of days ago. Let me read that. Robert Morris has resigned as senior pastor of Gateway Church in South Lake, Texas, 3 days ago after confessing to engaging in sexual behavior with a child over the course
Oh,
of a few years in the 1980s. The board of elders at Gateway made the announcement Tuesday in a statement to NBC News. The elders, prior to understanding, was that Morris's extramarital relationship, which he had discussed many times throughout his ministry, was with a young lady, quote unquote, not abuse of a 12-year-old child. Even though it occurred many years before Gateway was established, as leaders of the church, we regret that we did not have the information that we have now. Now, what's not in here, what I didn't read, actually what can I say, the victim, she came out because she's like 50 some years old now.
right.
And she came out and said from 1982 to about 1988, she was like molested, abused. Her dad was actually a part of the church that he was in at that young time as he was a young minister. And so she said, no. Morris said they didn't have sexual intercourse, but the girls was like, they didn't have intercourse, but he fingered her and, did all that stuff, which is like, a type of that, especially at that time when you're 12, 13, whatever years old. So, and he ended up just resigning because before he brought out a statement, he said he was stepping down. This came out today, was talking about that he's resigning. And so just for me, I don't know, like I'm familiar with Robert Morris because he's actually Mike Todd's, I think, I want to say mentor, but like he used to be his pastor. He kind of came up under his ministry. You know what I mean? And the dude I listen to a podcast a lot, Tim Ross, he went under, and he was part of his ministry too for some years before he went back on his own. And so now, I don't know which one came out, whatever first, but this kind of seems like to me one of the same things as far as like getting ahead of the traction before everything that's kind of spilling out. Not saying I don't know any of these men, and I just want to say this, like, I think we all flawed, bro. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, we all have our thing. We all fall short of that standard. But it's like when I hear stuff like this, and I know it triggers you to another degree because, you were sexually assaulted, you know what I'm saying, or abused, however you want to name it, as a young child. And this young lady, if you get a chance, maybe I'll put the link up below or in the video or whatever, but she came out with some statements and comments talking about how that kind of scarred her for some years and how, and I think Robert Morris actually said that he got the blessing from the victim's dad to get back in ministry because he sat down for 2 years, I think from 87 to 89 because of this transgression. And then the lady was like, her dad never gave his blessing or anything like that for him to get back into ministry. And she thinks it's appalling that he's actually still teaching and doing all this stuff. But it's just another one. And just like you said, we said this whole season, this is exposure season, bro. Like, and whether or not I give credit maybe to some of these pastors and stuff for kind of getting ahead of it because they don't want to end up like a Carl Lentz. You remember what happened to Carl Lentz years ago with Hillsong, with him and his church. He's actually on the other side of it now. He got a podcast out explaining all the details of what happened, him and his wife and all that stuff. But it seems like, some of these men like Pastor Morris and maybe even Pastor Tony Evans, like it seems that way, I don't know, getting ahead of other stuff that may be coming out soon. And so I know you knowing your past and stuff like that, I did kind of want to see your view of what you thought about that, especially the one about Robert Morris, Pastor Robert Morris.
Man, I don't have, and for somebody who has experienced all of God's grace and mercy and forgiveness, um, certainly for nothing like that, but just doing things out of the wrong motive, doing things that would be considered felonious crimes or whatever, like,
Yeah.
and you getting a pass and not having to suffer the consequences of, stealing something out of a store. Or, it's a house in foreclosure that, you know what I'm saying? Like the people stuff still in there, you breaking the house and steal some stuff. Like I've done that type of stuff. You know what I'm saying? And didn't have to pay the consequences of that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I've driven the car for the dope. I drove the car with the dope in it from point A to point B, and I didn't have to serve the consequences of that. So I've experienced God's grace, even being in places I ain't have no business being. When you hurt a child, in any type of assault,
It's different.
because
It's hit.
it's not you're forcing somebody to do something, or you're coercing them into doing something. And so again, like with me, again, our culture, like if a woman does it, they're like, oh nigga, you lucky. Like I'm lucky if I'm 15, I guess.